Welcome to Makers International, a podcast of makers from 3 countries, 2 continents, and featuring 5 guys separated only by the same language. Here's your host, Richard Morley.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you're listening. Joined me as always, Mr. Chris Hughes.
Hello, how you doing?
Mr. Joe Whitaker.
You're right, Sam, yeah.
For the foreseeable future, Mr. Jason McGinn.
Good day, folks.
And keep your other halves under wraps, Jamie Page.
Hello, Kat.
Wow.
There is a little story there, but we won't go into it now. We'll leave that for the chat. And also Peter Brown. How you getting on, mate?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. We don't quite know what we're going to talk about, but hopefully it will centre around you. So fingers crossed. I'm going to give you just a few seconds to bail out if you decide to, I guess, while I do the normal sort of shout outs, thank yous and the kind of preamble. So we'll be right back with you in just a second. But first and foremost, the shout outs and thank yous from last week. We've got Jim Overton, the Redsmith, Kat, my other half, Hip Noodle, Pam from Highland Boxes, Odessa Woodworking and Maker Shop, Tracy Keaton, Jim Dockrell, and Frankie's CNC and Woodworking Channel. So there's some new ones there, which is absolutely fantastic because that means either people have changed their names or we're getting new viewers, which is pretty cool. We do like it when people get in contact with us and when they interact and all the rest of it, either in the live chat on the show or in the after show and the rerun that Chris puts out and Joe publishes, edits, and then Jamie sorts out on a Wednesday. But as always, tonight's show is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Wood Turns Abrasive Paste, and our good friend Chad over at Mancrafting. We're still giving away one of his awesome Mancrafting mugs every month for the foreseeable future to our lucky listeners. So if you want to find out more about our sponsors and what they're doing, then go over to the website makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. Now, Chris, normally I come to you and ask about a random listener question, but you've been really mean to me last episode or 2. So, Joe, have you seen anything for random listener questions this week?
I certainly have, and luckily it was sent directly to me, so I haven't even had to bother messaging Chris at all for this one. Dave G from Dave G Designs sent me a question over. He's talking about using multiple cameras for his YouTube channel. He said he's currently got a Fold Pro, like little fake GoPro. It's 4K, Wi-Fi, brilliant, all that stuff. But he's considering getting another camcorder or other kind of camera and wants to know our thoughts on it. And he's thinking he's got a price range around £150 to £200. Do we think it's a good idea to have multiple cameras? Is there anything that we could recommend along those lines? That kind of thing, really.
Okay. I'm going to step aside for this one, actually, and I think it's probably appropriate to probably go to somebody like Peter, because you do a lot of turning, don't you, Peter?
Yeah, I do a lot of turning.
Do you do that with a single camera, or do you use multiple cameras, or have you even thought about multiple cameras, or how are you?
Yeah, here's my point of view. I hate editing already, and I hate editing with a single video source. I can't imagine having multiple cameras to try to edit that in. So personally, I'd rather just pause, move my camera, and start up again. That's me personally, but that's just from I can't stand editing, and I don't need more than 4 hours of editing in my life. So that's not a lot of help there. Sorry.
Well, no, actually, that's a lot of help, because that's pretty much what I would have said, give or take. The only thing I'd add to that is, if you are prepared to do the extra, then potentially you could get some really, really awesome and unique kind of video in style. But what's everyone else? What's their kind of take on that?
I have 2 cameras, but honestly, I seldom hit record on 2 cameras at once. I have a DSLR, but the zoom on that is limited. But as far as what his budget is, and forgive me because I don't know the current exchange rate, pounds to US dollars, 200 pounds would probably be what? Is that like $285 or something? I mean, we're talking about. Okay,
it's 1.3, I think.
Yeah, 266, 250, 266.
All right. Well, you know what? You might be able to find because there is a camcorder out there and actually, Jamie's getting one relatively soon. There's a Canon Vixia It's the HF series of Vixia. There's an HF 5, 6, 7, 800 series out there that aren't really that expensive, but the zoom that those cameras have on them is really helpful. Especially when you are looking to do a really tight close-up shot, and that's pretty much what I use mine for. And I also use it as a travel cam because it's what I took to Maker Central with me, because it's it's small, it's compact, and it shoots 1080. So if he's looking for a camera like that, I know that like I said, Canon makes one, Sony makes one, and they're all within that price range, kind of, sort of. But you may have to buy last year's model to get it for that dollar amount.
Aren't them Vixias that you call in the States? Don't we call them Legrias over here?
I wouldn't know, Jamie. I don't.
I think we've looked at that before, and I think they call them Canon Legrias. But yeah, when it comes to recording, from my perspective, I'd mimic exactly what Peter said. I would do exactly the same thing.
Well, I'd jump in with, there is a couple of instances where I would want to use two camera sources at the same time, recording at the same time. It would either be if I want to do regular speed shots that I'd use my DSLR, but I might be doing a long process that I'd want to also capture time lapse at the same time. So I'd want a double camera source for that. And also, if there's a job that I don't really want to stop halfway through or fake repeat it, then I would use two cameras. So recently I did a fold down table, and I had to hold the table up against the wall and put a screw in. And one camera angle showed me holding it against the wall, and the other actually showed the screw going in. Now, that isn't something that I'd want to do once, stop, take the screw out, change the camera, all that stuff. So that was ideal for that. But if it's something that's really simple, literally starting and then stopping and moving your camera gets exactly the same effect, if not better. It takes a little more time. But as Peter was mentioning, you save a lot of time in editing because it's just one single source then. But think about using your smartphone you've already got, Dave, or even have a look secondhand. You'll probably get a decent Android or even a decent iPhone for less than £200, and they've got great cameras.
Yeah, I was going to mention the sort of the secondhand market, but Jason, you might have a sort of an interesting take on this, because you're sort of an IT-ish sort of person, aren't you? So presumably you love editing, and that's kind of why you get out of bed in the morning.
I think do you ever hear the mechanics always has the crappy car, the broken car?
Yeah,
That's true.
It's the same thing for IT. I use my phone. And I'm like Peter, I just keep it as simple as I can. I check my phone. Actually, I've tried two phones before, but then the quality differences are different because I only get a phone every 2 years or 3 or whatever it is. So I stick with one phone. It's just easier.
And do you know what? I knew you'd have a good point, and I don't think you even realised your point. Is if you've got two different camera settings and two different camera sources, you can potentially have two very different images in terms of the colour, the focus, and all the rest of it. Whereas at least if it's coming from the same camera, it's probably about the same in terms of visually.
I forget to hit record on my one camera enough, so I don't need another one.
I've done that more than once.
I think that's got that covered anyway. So cheers for that question, Dave. Honestly, it's been a great topic to cover. It could be something we could go into more detail in a dedicated show sometime, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole technology thing is probably a topic that people like talking about. But obviously, we're not here to talk technology tonight. We're here to talk to Peter. So who would like to kick us off, putting Peter under the spotlight and making him sweat? That came out wrong. That came out so wrong.
I can start it since it's been a while. Boxers or briefs?
That's how we're going to start this, Jamie. Really?
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
Okay.
Not tidy whities. So mostly boxer briefs and boxers, as long as it's not a tidy whitey.
There we go.
Does that work?
Yeah. Hey everybody, you're welcome.
That works. I'll move on up, and hopefully I'm going to upgrade the conversation just about that much, Peter.
Great.
I met you for the first time in Birmingham when we went to Maker Central. First off, I mean, I don't want to belabor the Maker Central event because it's been talked about to eons and eons. But it was very nice to meet you and your wife, and you're both amazingly gracious people. So I just wanted to, tell you that to your face, that I did appreciate how nice you were. But I know that you were at Maker Central, and I saw your video where you put it out there where you said this was kind of a second thought. Your primary reason was you wanted to go for a trip because you had always wanted to go to the UK, much like I did. That's why I went to Maker Central to begin with. How was the rest of your trip after Maker Central aside? How did you go down to London, or what did you guys do?
Yeah, we had a very nice. It was very nice to meet you too. It was nice to actually put real. We have faces to these, but to actually shake somebody's hand that you've been watching or talking to was really fun. Yeah. So it's nice to meet you as well. We went from Birmingham to London, and we were only down there for a couple of days, and we had a great time. It was really a lovely time. I'd say the only thing that wasn't what I expected was the weather, right? So I left California. It's 80 degrees here. We fly to England, and it's 80 degrees there the entire time. There was no fog. There was no people in trench coats. It was guys without their shirts on walking around. And I was just like, this feels like home with an accent. It was totally bonkers.
So there was like no Sherlock Holmes or
yeah, I was like, I want a dark, murky, whatever. But it wasn't. It was super nice and comfortable and bright. We had a really nice time. Everybody we met was really nice. My favorite, it's funny to say, of all the amazing things that we saw in London, my favorite thing was riding in the London cab. Because they were incredibly terrifying and super polite. You get in the cab and the guy is so nice, and then he just tears through traffic. Our cabbie, one time, he made his own lane between a bus and another cab, and he's swearing out the window, and they're honking and swearing at him, and he leans back and he goes, "We're almost there." It was totally surreal.
Well, these are like famous cabs in London. Is that the black cabs, guys?
The black cab.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. Because there's actually a neon sculpture of one in the airport that I flew out of in Heathrow. And yeah, you know what? I agree with you, because Mark and I grabbed one from the when we got back from Birmingham, and oh boy, yeah, that's a sit back and hang on ride. I don't mind telling you.
It was wild. I mean, we had so much fun. We saw lots of cool things. Do you guys know Retro Weld?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
He recommended that we go and see Churchill's secret bunker, and so we did that. And that, for me, that was the highlight of the London trip. We spent 4 hours down in Churchill's bunker looking at amazing things, like the actual Enigma box was down there, and it was just so much information to take in. It was really cool.
Awesome.
So yeah, really good trip.
Very cool.
Great stuff. Well, when Alan's been on the podcast before, his always go-to question whenever we'd have a guest on would be, what's your origin story? So what really got you started in this whole maker journey that you've been on for how long now? Like, how did you get started? How long you been doing it? All that good stuff.
Is it a YouTube origin or making origin?
Bit of both, really. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've told this story. I've actually told this story a lot. So, but the truth of it is that I got started making things pretty late in life. I think it was like 2008. My wife decided that we needed a bookcase for this very peculiar area of our house, and we couldn't buy it anywhere. And so I went, I can make a bookcase. And I went down to the home center and I bought some really cheap plywood. And I had all these tools in my garage because I'm a homeowner, but I'd never used them for anything ever. And in half a day, I made the most ugly, out of square, poorly stained, put together with nails bookcase you've ever seen in your whole life. And to me, it's like when a proud papa shows a picture of an ugly baby, and you're just like, that was my ugly baby. I put that thing in, it fit perfectly in that spot. I would like bring in strangers off the street. Hey, come on, look at this bookcase. You're never going to believe it. The middle support totally sagged, so all the books like ran into the center. And it was completely unsafe. The edges weren't sanded. It was all jagged, and it was awful. But yeah, I loved it, and it is my origin story. So within 3 months, I had purchased a table saw, and experience kickback and, full 9, just dove right in from there, and got a lathe for free the next year off of Craigslist, and I haven't made anything productive since. Which my wife is probably thankful for, because now she can just buy stuff from IKEA.
Oh, man.
I have like 3 IKEA bookshelves right over here. I can look at them.
Wow, that actually hurt.
I hate building bookshelves.
That's kind of the beauty of making stuff, though, isn't it? You talk about, you've gone from that sort of stereotypical, I need a, insert thing for your house or wherever, and it's horrible.
Right.
But then, it doesn't need to be beautiful. It doesn't need to be, Chippendale standards, handmade, for you to be proud of something that you've created with your own hands. But then you take that a step further with what you are doing, is it doesn't even really need to be practical. Why would you encase your credit card in clear resin? Or why would you, take food out of the fridge and turn it into a block of resin? But it's still creating, it's still making, it's still art in its own right, without a kind of a purpose or a need. It's just for the sake of doing it. And I think what you do kind of typifies that and inspires people that would look at, I can't build a bookcase, I don't even want to try, I'll go and buy it. And then they never get involved in it. They never get that pride or that sort of thing. So why go for the sort of the rabbit hole that you've taken? Why particularly that?
So to sort of continue that story, I need to explain a little backstory, which is that I got super into turning. Like, for 2 years, I got crazy deep into turning, and I was making practical things. I was making bowls and pens and boxes, and I was selling them. And I was selling a ton of them, bracelets and pendants and anything else. And so I've probably made thousands of pens and bracelets and boxes and bowls, and I've sold every single one that I've ever made. And that burned me out. It took something that I thought I was enjoying, and it turned it into the most miserable job after my already 9-to-5 job that this was supposed to be bringing me down from. And so I closed up the shop, and I said, I'm never going back into it. And I wasn't in the shop for 3 months. And then I saw somebody named Jimmy DeResta making stuff on YouTube. And I went, I can do that. That looks like fun. And that's what inspired me to go back out in the shop and build stuff. And then at that time, I decided I'm not going to build anything that I don't want to build. I'm only going to build things once. and if I don't ever want to build it again, I'm not going to. And I don't take commissions, and I don't do things for other people that I don't want to do myself. And so it just sort of evolved into this sort of weird, rabbit hole, as you said. And the other thing that happened accidentally with that is that I have become very comfortable with so many different types of resins that, because of all the stupid, weird stuff that I've made, I feel like I can give resin advice to almost anybody. It totally increased my knowledge. Like, I was sitting down and having a conversation with somebody, I realized it's been an hour, and I was telling them all these different things about resin that they had no idea about. It's like, yeah, well, I've sort of been, putting gummy bears in resin for the last year. So.
Well, that's what Peter, I was about ready to say. I mean, if I had questions about resin and some guy next to me said, well, you should go talk to that guy, he made an axe handle out of gummy bears in resin, I would go, yeah, that's the guy I kind of probably need to talk to, because he knows what to talk about.
Yeah, so it's just,
Which was mind blown, Peter. By the way, that just was like, what the hell?
What's the point of that? I have no idea.
That was awesome. That was just wild. I love it.
Do you think that you would actually attempt these kinds of crazy projects if you wasn't doing it for YouTube? Do you think you'd be able to get away with it for a start? Or is this the main excuse? It's for YouTube, so I can go and play for a little bit now.
I really like making YouTube videos. It really makes me happy. And the object is a byproduct for me now, right? So when I was making a cabinet or when I was making pens for people, that was the end product. That was what I cared about. I was like, this end product matters. Take it, give me my $40. But now the end product is the video. And the thing about YouTube is that practical projects aren't as popular on YouTube as the crazy ones. So I'm just building practical things for YouTube because I'm just trying to get, I'm trying to make a video that is popular. So I'm actually very, very practical. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Does it make perfect sense now?
No, what you're saying is you figured out a way to make the absurd practical.
It's totally practical.
Exactly.
I feel bad for guys that are just turning bowls because it's nowhere near as practical as encasing aluminum shavings in polyester resin and sending them to your friends.
Oh my gosh! Not surprisingly, we have a lot of questions out from the chat. Jamie, do you have anything ready to go for Peter?
Yes, mate. Sorry, I was nodding there because I thought I was muted. Yeah, we've got one from Phil Cannon Woodworking. He wants to know, is Mrs. Brown going to be in more videos? With a blowtorch, presumably.
Here's the thing. It's kind of funny. She doesn't like being in videos. I have to force her to come onto the video. And she does really well, and she's super personal. And if you ever meet her in real life, she's super nice and personal. But she doesn't like being in the videos at all. So, yeah. If I can coerce her in, then yes. She'll totally be in more videos.
There you go. Cat Littlewood says, Peter, did you take your wife to Harry Potter Studios tour?
No, we wanted to, but we didn't have time. We went to King's Cross Station, and there was a huge queue to hold on to a cart half into a wall, I guess. Have you guys been there?
Yes.
Okay, so they have this cart, like you're going to Hogwarts, and it's half buried in the wall, and then they grab your scarf and they throw it in the air and you get a picture, and you have to wait in line an hour for that. And so we went, okay, that's cool. And we went into the little shop and bought a couple pens. So
awesome.
Got my Slytherin pen, and that's about as far as we went.
Can I let you into a little secret on that whole, the trolley thing?
Yeah.
You dodged a bullet.
Oh, good.
Because that's not actually where the platform 9 3/4 is.
No, it's like way over the other side. We got a picture of it.
Yeah, well, they couldn't be taking the pictures there because then the kids wouldn't get to school, would they?
Yeah.
Oh, Joe.
That's hilarious. I think, yeah, Mrs. Brown and you would get along. She's always just like, it's a documentary.
Oh, it's definitely real.
Right. The next one comes from the Wood Barber. He says, Peter, are you thinking about making some pumice stones out of the bubbly resin creation?
Oh, that'd be interesting. No, I hadn't, but yeah. Years ago, I made these foot massagers. You put them on the ground and you roll your feet on them. I think those things would be super comfortable for foot massagers. So
yeah,
sooner or later, I'm going to find a practical use for that ridiculous idea. I just don't know what it is.
The Red Smith would like to know, what is your favorite project so far and least favorite?
Oh, nice. It was nice to meet you, Red Smith.
Gerald's a good guy.
He's a really good guy. He was super nice. Favorite project was hands down the Jurassic Park cane. It's one of those things where I just was saying that the video is the end product. That's one of the few projects I would feel bad if I lost that actual object. Like when we had the fires here in Santa Rosa and we evacuated, we packed all of our stuff into the car and everything. We drove away. My wife was like, are you really sad if the house burns down? I'm like, no, I put the amber cane under the seat. I said, we forgot the tax documents, but I put the amber cane under the seat. And my least favorite project would be, I made this thing out of Jolly Ranchers and turned it on the lathe, and it was just the dumbest idea I've ever had. And I got sugar all over the shop, and it took about 8 hours to clean up. And obviously the thing melted because it's Jolly Ranchers. So it was just such a stupid idea.
Actually, on that, how do you control when you're turning like salt or something like that? to protect your cast iron or the different tools you have in your shop? Because I imagine that gets in the air pretty thick. And
Yeah, I try really hard not to get it wet. So, you just kind of treat it like a gremlin. So dry salt doesn't really hurt anything. It's the moisture that kills it. So as soon as I'm done with the salt project, I suck it all up in the shop vac and do my best to, just get every little last bit of it. And we don't have a humidity problem out here in California. There's pretty low humidity. So if I can get it all sucked up in an hour or so, then I'm pretty much okay.
You're in Northern California, aren't you, Peter?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, yeah, because Southern California, there's humidity down there, but Sacramento, San Francisco areas, not so much. I got a question for you. It derives from people wanting to know this, and if anybody's followed Peter Brown for quite some time, and I'm sure many of you have, there was a question that was asked earlier. Where is whatever happened to your twin brother? Did he move away, or did he just not decide to not be in your videos anymore?
Isn't that sad? Yes. So I had a shop right behind me out back, and that's where I started doing videos. And in that shop, I spent all this money on lighting, really nice lighting, and I got all the lighting the same. And that's when I did the split screen was in that shop. And in the new shop, I haven't upgraded the lighting. I've still got totally different color lighting for all the different areas of the shop. And every time I try to do a split screen, it's like orange on one side and blue on the other.
Oh, okay.
So, and about my lack of editing ability, so I don't know how to fix it. So he's working in the old shop until I can figure it out.
I used to love that too. But you know why I used to love it? Because your brother always wore a cap, and I used to wear a cap just like that when I was younger, and I wore it for close to 10 to 15 years, that cap, and I was like, I like that guy. Peter's a jerk, but I like this dude.
This guy's great.
I can relate to him. You not so much. I like him. That was awesome.
Sticking with the crazy aspect, where do you get your ideas from? I mean, do you have like a long list of stuff that you want to put in resin? I know you kind of put it out there and ask the questions, but why would you go? Do you just go to the fridge one morning for breakfast and go, I could eat this, or I could put it in resin, or how?
Okay, I think I understand the question. So years ago, I made a video called A Colored Pencil Ring, and I made it out of colored pencils, and I turned it on the lathe, and it was a really popular video for me. It was my first video, over 1 million views. And one of the comments I got was, if you used resin, you could probably make those easier. And I went, oh, I've never heard of resin. And so I bought a bottle of West Systems, because that's what Jimmy DiResta uses in his shop. And I tried it with the colored pencil ring, and it didn't work. And so then I've got a gallon of West Systems left, right? And honestly, that's just what happened. I was like, well, I wonder what I can use this for. And then I start, I wonder what it'll look like with jeans. And I made a jean bracelet, and I was like, I wonder what it would look like with a book, and I made a book out of it. And then people kind of went, can you put chicken wings in there? And I was like, yeah, I guess I could try that. What about bacon? And they're like, yeah, bacon. And they're like, okay, tried that. And then the viewers are driving this now. I am no longer the conductor of the train. The viewers are driving everything. So I just go into my comments, I read them, I put it on a list, and I've got a list about as long as my arm of ideas of things that have to be put in resin. People have been sending me things to put in resin for about 3 years. I have 3 bankers boxes in my shop of things that people have sent me that I have to, at some point, try to put in and give them credit for it. So, yeah, I'll be doing this until the end of time.
I find that's always like the most interesting part with your videos, though, where you'll be literally, like you say, you'll be given a material suggestion, and then you actually try and figure out what could it actually be turned into. I'm going to say into something practical, because you do 9 times out of 10, you actually come up with what we would typically call a practical item from a crazy material. So being able to see your thought process and the trial and error all the way through, it's fantastic to see, and it's a real community feel behind it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, absolutely, and I have to say the bacon maybe one of my favorites. I mean, that's like, who would ever think of that? It's like, but you know what, Peter? I want one. I absolutely
Seriously.
want one.
They're not hard to make. Yeah, the bacon holds up great. You can't tell the difference.
Because I'm just going to assume not many people have one of those. Whatever.
I think the best bit was it was a vegetable peeler as well, wasn't it? So it was for a vegetarian relative.
Right. So it's offensive. The point was it was supposed to be offensive to everybody. Right. So you give it to somebody who doesn't like bacon to peel their vegetables, or you give it to somebody who doesn't like vegetables and it's useless to them. Right. So I mean, that was the point. It was supposed to be equally offensive to everybody. And it was absolutely.
A couple of people would like to know, and I guess this is following on from your Three Bankers box comment. Have you got any? Are you prepared to reveal any future ideas that might come up in the next gazillion years?
I mean, somebody always asks what I've got planned, and the truth is I never have anything planned. I literally do not know what I'm going to do next. Like, I'm going to go out in the shop after this and I'm going to work on a project, and I couldn't even tell you what it is yet.
That's awesome. That is truly awesome.
It's not my thing. It's not something I'm good at. I'm not good at forethought and, coming up with things. So I don't know.
Just want to chuck that out there. Pete's Bunker Handicrafts is saying, have you ever tried turning a popcorn bowl resined in popcorn, or using popcorn?
Yes, I have not. So a viewer actually sent me red and black popcorn kernels, and they're sitting on my bench right now, and I'm going to try to pop them and see what happens to kernels, the popped kernels in resin. My thought is they're just going to soak into nothing. It's like if you put water on them, but
do they pop red? Do they?
I don't know.
Colors? Huh?
I hope so. If they,
that would be
not much of a novelty if they don't.
Because I would like to have some black popcorn.
Yeah, doesn't that sound cool?
Yeah, it does. But the kernels themselves might be kind of cool. I was, and Jason and I were talking about this the other day, and your name came up, Peter, because we were talking about he was turning an ebony pen, and I was turning a pen out of ebony as well. And he mentioned that he saved his sawdust, and I saved it too. Well, and this is a practical question to a ridiculous project. Could you actually take the sawdust from a wood project that you have that you've turned on a lathe and incorporate resin in that and actually turn another pen out of the resin that incorporates the wood that would normally go in the trash? I mean, would that be something that would work?
Yeah, it would totally work. You know what it would look like? It would look like MDF. Because that's
really,
yeah, and I've done that. You totally would get MDF out of it, but with ebony, you'd get a really pretty MDF. So, yeah.
All right, Jason.
It would also be really good for filling cracks. You wouldn't have to use a black dye or anything. You could use it for crack filling in other, like a wood slab or something.
Right. Well, for people that are looking to do kind of like a resin casting type thing, I mean, is there a balance between the amount of resin that you need to have with a different type of material, or is it just basically as long as everything gets the resin on it, it will adhere to each other, and you could do with it what you would? Or
so you would mix the resin normally.
Okay.
You would mix the volume of resin that you would need normally, and that is your chemical mixture, right?
Okay.
And that's done. And then you would add to whatever object you want. And it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect the chemical makeup of the resin. When we do what's called cold casting, where we take resin and metal powders, what you do is you mix up resin. So you've got, like, say, 4 ounces of resin, and then you would take 4 ounces of brass powder or iron powder or whatever, and you pour the two together, and that's called cold casting. And it ends up looking and feeling metallic. And I would imagine you'd do the same thing with the wood dust. And
Awesome.
You'd probably get a pretty good bond with that.
Well, there we go, Jason. And then you can make another casting out of the shavings from the blank that you turned. No, I'm just kidding.
It would look totally different.
It would look totally different. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Never
if you
put a little blank.
Put a little pearl powder in there, it might look really cool, actually.
Ooh, there's an idea.
It doesn't work with wood glue though. I tried to do a project before where I got an old rubber glove, like a pink marigold washing up glove, and filled it full of sawdust and wood glue. And I thought, oh, this is going to set solid. This will just be set like solid wood. No, it's just mush.
Oh, it didn't work?
No,
Oh,
no,
that's
it
too
didn't
bad.
even set a little bit. I thought I'd have like a perfect hand cast shape, but no. No
Oh,
good.
that's too bad. I would have thought that would have worked too.
Well, presumably it needs the air to cure the wood glue, doesn't it? Whereas a resin is a chemical curing process rather than it glue dries, doesn't it? So I don't know. But I've got a question for you, Peter. I'm sure you've been asked this loads, and I genuinely haven't. I want to know the answer. What do you do when you're not in the shop? I mean, presumably you don't spend your entire life making crazy things out of other crazy things. You've got family and all the rest of it. So what do you like to do not in the shop?
I mean, I don't like to do my job, but I have to do that. So I'm a network engineer, 40 hours a week. And then if I'm not in the shop, I'm probably playing video games. So I'm pretty avid gamer. So, yeah, and then obviously, we have to spend time with the family, of course. You have to. Got 2 girls and a wife, and, it's necessary.
Is that presumably that's 40 hours at work away from home? It's not like a home.
No, yeah, it's at work away from home, sitting at a desk. Yeah.
Wishing you were in the shop.
Wishing I was in the shop.
See, I'm kind of glad that you said that, because a lot of people would probably assume, and I kind of did, that, because of your sort of YouTube success and the longevity of your channel, both backwards and looking forwards, that you possibly weren't a 40-hour a week commuter guy behind a desk. You were a full-time maker. So it's kind of
YouTube full-time.
It kind of is refreshing to see somebody at your kind of level, for want of a better expression, that actually still, has to go to work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And there was a time last year where I came really close to being like, I should quit my job and do YouTube full time, because, it seemed like it might have been feasible. And then I realized that I was just going to be trading, one misery for another. And I've done that before. And I told you guys about that earlier. And I was like, I don't want to find a new hobby to come down from doing YouTube all day. I like this as a hobby and I want to keep it. And I think it's okay. You don't, just because you've become good at something doesn't mean you need to make a living from it. And I think it's okay to have it just be a hobby.
That's a really refreshing kind of take on that. And that was kind of what I had in the back of my mind when you talked about, turning thousands of pens and hating it, because I was going to say at that point, you go from turning your hobby into your job, which then becomes the job you hate. So you kind of step out of the frying pan and into the fire. So do you think that is what keeps your channel sort of fresh and exciting for the viewer, because it's always fun for you rather than being a job?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think so. I also like to think that because I never know what's happening, this is the way I work. I work like this. Like I have just no idea what I'm doing, and I make as I work 40 hours a week, and I'm a network guy, and the internet is sort of my primary function, is making sure the internet is functioning at work and getting all the internet connections going. The last thing I want to do in the shop is look stuff up online. And so a lot of times I'll get into a problem in the shop and I'll work really hard to not try to solve it on the internet just by guessing. And a lot of times that frustrates people who are watching. They're like, it's super easy. If you just done a web search, you could have figured out this. And I was like, well, I didn't want to do a web search. I was in the shop. I didn't want to be around a computer. I just wanted to try to bungle through it. And I don't know. I think that process sort of makes it light, I guess.
Brilliant. And I'm really glad you talked about muddling through and not using the internet search, because my next question was literally going to be, what projects have you done that just sucked so badly they were just epic fails and never made a video? or do you just put everything out?
I don't. I have 3 projects that I have a whole bunch of video for that will never be released because they were just absolutely epic fails. But I'm not going to tell you what they are, just in case I ever decide to go back and try them again. But yeah,
I thought that would be the case.
It does happen, absolutely. And I'm okay with failure. I'm totally okay with it, and it doesn't upset me if something ultimately becomes a failure. And giving up on it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or that I'm a failure as a person. It just means that that particular idea didn't work, and that's okay. And if I just want to flush it, it doesn't hurt me. I don't have to pick myself up and figure out a way to fix it. I don't really care about it that much.
I've got enough ideas to not have to worry about
Flush
it.
that piece of garbage and move on.
I don't need that. But somehow that thought always remains in the back of your head going, because someday you may go, I may figure out how to make that actually friggin' work someday.
Yeah, I might wake up in the middle of the night with a solution.
Or sometimes the problems you ran into help you on a different project, something else kind of side related to it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have learned so much about resin from giant mass problems that I agree completely.
Jamie, tons of questions out in the chat. Do you want to grab one?
Yeah, I was just grabbing them. Right, the first one comes from Nate from A Young Man's Workshop. He would like to know, would you ever rebuild part of your shop for a museum for your art projects?
That's hilarious. No. No, but that's a cool idea.
Another one. I'll say another one. There's one from Andy Pugh. He says, if no resin or lathe, what thing would you be making?
Why? Why did you take away my resin and my lathe? Why did he do that? Before I had a lathe, I used to make cabinets for my house. So I guess if that had never happened. No, what he's asking is, if I don't have a resin or a lathe, what would I do? You could do a lot of casting. No, but that's resin. Andy, don't take away my stuff. Don't take away my toys, man. Getting sweats up here.
Colonel Panic.
All right. Carol wants to know, if Maker Central happens again next year, Peter, are you on board with coming back, or is that just going to be something you'll have to answer at a later date?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not up for another day of flying at the moment, but it's only been a few weeks since then, so maybe all of that'll disappear come April. You'd be like, oh, it's going to be great.
I know what I'm up against, but it's still going to be fun, right?
The event was amazing. I totally would love to go back. I'm not sure that sitting in a plane for 9 hours is on my list of things to do right now.
Yeah, I hear that.
Do you?
Yeah, totally understand.
Do you think that the shows that are in the States that are available to you, obviously at a much closer distance, do you think they would be able to almost fill the void in any way or part, or do you think that they're completely separate? And
they were nothing like that. Yeah, Maker Central for me was probably the best event I've ever been to. So
Me too.
I thought
Me too.
it was amazing. I've been to woodworking shows, I've been to makers fairs, and this was just so much better for me personally. It was more intimate. There was more things there that I connected with personally. There was more people there that I cared about. It was my favorite event I've ever been to. And yeah, that's easy to say.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I've been to the Maker Fair in New York. I've been to the woodworking shows in Atlanta and also Springfield. And Makers Central was something completely different. It encompassed a lot of different people and a lot of different things. And I got to meet a lot of new friends and meet these guys for the first time face to face. It was awesome. I mean, it's, anyway, Nick Zametti, good job. All right, let's move on.
Tracy Keaton, I think it was, had a good question for you. What did you do in school? What did you want to be pre
When you grow up.
you now?
Oh, I see. I did a lot of C and D's in school. That was school. I wanted to be a chiropractor because I found out that my mother's chiropractor had his own private glider. So I didn't really have many ambitions in school. My father dropped out of school when he was pretty young, and my mother was a pretty mediocre student, and so neither one of them felt like they had the right to push me in school, and I was just an abysmal student. So the best thing about school was the day I didn't have to go back. That was just kind of me. I fell into computers, and I was really, really good with computers, and it just kind of happened. But yeah, it wasn't because of my schooling.
That's kind of interesting. So many people say they just kind of fall into things and it just randomly appears rather than it is aimed for. It's a bizarre chain of events which always seems to happen.
Yeah, it's funny because I had one of my best friends was graduated at the top of his class, and he wanted to be a brain surgeon, and now he runs raves. It's like you're like, well, I mean, it could have been. He worked really hard to get all those A's, and I'm doing better than him, so it's okay.
There's another question that I've just lost. Where was it?
Don't worry, I've got a few written down here.
Okay, I'll leave it for you then, Jamie. Hopefully.
There's one from Tom Spillane. He says, "What's the best thing to buy for turning, a pressure pot or a degassing chamber?" Obviously, when it comes to resin, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to choose between the two of them, then a pressure pot is definitely the much more important one. For degassing, it doesn't work that great for resin, and it's mostly for silicone. I don't own a pressure pot. I've never used a pressure pot. I don't think that they're essential kit. I think that they're something that you can add on once you get really good at it. So my recommendation would be to just start with simple castings and see if you get to a point where you actually enjoy it, because you might hate it. There's no sense in doing the deep dive from the beginning. You see those people do that all the time. They're like, well, I need A, B, C, D to start. And you're like, no, you don't. You don't need all that to start. You need gloves, you need mixing cups, you need a mold, and you need some resin to start. Oh, and a respirator. That's all you need to start. And if you love it, then there's always something else to buy. I mean, that's true of any hobby, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to start with all of the tools. At some point you go, well, these bubbles are starting to piss me off, so I'd like to get a pressure pot. But it's not first day. When you're like, I want to start woodworking, what do I need? I need a router, I need a dovetail jig, and I need a cabinet saw.
And
right?
Please note that nowhere in that conversation did Peter mention a scroll saw. All right, go
I mean, or a router.
Shots fired.
I'm so sorry. I hate my scroll saw.
I'm sorry,
but
Jamie.
It's okay because I've got a CNC machine now.
I just wanted to.
That's okay because I've converted Richard's better half.
I'm sorry, Jamie and Peter. I apologize for throwing you into that.
I was so hoping that we wouldn't go down that road, but
sorry, Richard. I apologize.
And I'm doing my utmost to make sure she has the best experience possible whilst doing it.
That would be watching you do it.
Yes, yes. Please do go and get a Hegner.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, it's like having conversations with the scroll saw scribbler. We chat back and forth every time in Messenger, and he's all, "Have you upgraded yet to a $1,200 scroll saw?" I was like, "I don't need to. I've got a CNC."
Exactly. I did a video once where I actually had to break out my old scroll saw, and I put a little label on it. It says, "This is an antique CNC." Well. Hey, anyway, I'm sorry, Peter. I derailed you. I apologize.
That's hilarious.
I had to go there.
Good old Justin.
Well, I'm sure there are other questions out there. Jamie, you got any more?
Let's have a look. Right. We've got another one from Andy Pugh. He says, any future plans? Is there anything that you want to try that you haven't tried yet?
Oh, I mean, loads of stuff that I haven't tried yet. It's funny because there really are. There's tons and tons of stuff I want to try. But the things that are probably going to happen sooner rather than later is that my wife has decided that she wants a farmhouse table, which means I have to decide if I'm going to make a farmhouse table video or not. Because I'm going to have to build one because she said she wants one and she's going to get one from me.
Because when the boss says, it's like, then we do.
She asks for so little. So when she says she wants something, it's just like, okay, well, I should totally do that. But I'm like, how in the world could I make a farmhouse table and release that video on my channel? I'm not even sure how that would work.
You know what? It's time. It's time to employ your brother once again.
Maybe a single piece of cutlery for it.
That's a good point. Yeah, we should bring back the other guy.
Maybe the other guy needs to build that one, Peter.
What you should do is build the table, but then cast in resin the knives and forks at all the places.
Toxic cutlery.
Just do a riverbed table.
Oh no! Don't do a riverbed table.
I'm sorry. That's never going to happen.
Oh my God!
Poor Andy. I've now bombed 2 of his questions. I'm so sorry, Andy.
I sent a question from Gerald out in the chat, the Redsmith, and he's got a question related to your gaming. He's asking, what games do you play? And are you PC, PS4, Xbox?
Yeah, I'm a PC gamer, and I worship at the altar of Bethesda. So I mostly play Skyrim games and Fallout games. I'm playing Assassin's Creed. I'm playing through all of them because Steam just had a sale where they like sold them all for like $50.
Oh,
so now
really?
I've got it's insane. I've got 6 games I've got to play through. And they just released a video that basically says that Fallout 7.6 is coming out, which means it'll probably be out by November. So I've got to get through all the Assassin's Creed between now and November. So don't expect a lot of videos.
Gerald is a massive Assassin's Creed fan, especially with Origin recently, so he'll love that answer.
I'm excited about Origin. I'm still on 3, so I'm about halfway through 3.
The only one I've played is the one where you've got the red coats and I think the North American Indian kind of thing. And I talked to Gerald about it for about a second, and he goes, "Yeah, that's the worst one of all of them."
That's the one I'm on. Yeah,
great.
That's what I'm playing right now.
I think the last game I played was Pong.
That's a good game.
And you stood in line for 18 hours to buy it.
Well, no, but then I did graduate, and I actually played Asteroids for quite some time. But yeah, you guys are way ahead of me. I'm sorry.
You got to get into VR, Chris.
Well, it's like I couldn't figure out Galactica, so I stuck with Asteroids.
I mean, I loved all those games. I grew up on those games.
Me
so
too.
I'm with you.
I can't use them VR headsets because I'm blind in my left eye. I went down into town to play the games. They put the headset on me, and they had some witch or something that's supposed to come near me, and I just stood there. They were kind of like, you do realise you've just been stabbed on your left arm. And I'm like, really?
Oh,
I can't feel it. I'm blind.
I say, yeah, this doesn't work with you.
Oh my God. Oh my! Well, I think Richard. I think we're coming up on time here, and Richard and I don't. But you know what? Surprisingly enough, with Peter, Joe hasn't given us that kind of look that he normally goes like, "Guys, we're getting on." So I think Peter's well loved.
I think Joe's got a bit of a bromance going on, and he really doesn't care. But I was just looking through the chat to double check that we kind of covered all the bases on the questions.
Yeah.
And I'm desperately trying to see if Pam is in the chat. Pam Harris, Highland Boxes. Pam, if you're out there, then make a comment that I can see easily, because I know she works nights and she has to race home to see the end of the show. And if we finish before she gets in, then she can't see it until Wednesday because Chris takes it down to produce it. So that's why I kind of have things dragging on a little while. It's for our viewers.
Her and her dad. She was super nice.
It's really, really, really nice. Yeah.
Her dad he has an infectious laugh.
He's a legend. He's an absolute legend.
So I have a question for Joe.
Yep.
Joe, are you excited about the new milliput colors that they're coming out with?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen some of them, yeah. And they actually came around to my house, of all places, because like, they'd got a stand at Maker Central, for those of you who wasn't there. And they asked if I'd got any little projects that I could take over and display in the display case. And I took a couple of things. And then with the rush of Maker Central and everything, I took our podcast banner down, left the NEC, and that was it. And I completely left my stuff behind. So I got a message, do you realise you've left your projects with us? I was like, I'm so sorry. This is my shipping address. Let me know how much it's going to cost to get them shipped back to me. And they're like, oh, no, we'll bring them round in person. So come deliver them in person. I had a really nice chat with them. So, yeah. But, yeah, the new colours, well overdue. I was speaking to him about trying to mix the colours in with the white milliput, which I really struggle with. I haven't managed to master. So hopefully when these get released mainstream, I'll be able to have a play about with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, they looked really vibrant. I thought you might have a lot of fun with them.
No, definitely. Yeah. I only do basic stuff, obviously, just like inlays and stuff, but then it's easy. That's what I like.
I mean, that box inlay wasn't basic. That was awesome.
But this is the thing, like watching your channel, I brought West Systems epoxy as well, and I tried it for the very first time and just overheated everything. And I'm like, I can't do inlays with this. Like, I'm going to have a nightmare. And I was thinking, there's got to be a putty. And then I was looking around and I found plumber's putty and stuff. I seen milliput, whacked it in a cutting board. And then like 3 years later, I'm still messing about with it. But let's see.
Awesome.
Why does West Systems heat up like it does? Because I've set fire to well, not literally set fire, but I've had them smoking hot, literally with stuff in with the West Systems because I've had that much mass. Well, why does it create so much heat compared to seemingly everything else?
So there's an excellent reason for that. And I'm just going to very quickly explain why I use West Systems epoxy. I use West Systems epoxy because Jimmy DeResta uses West Systems epoxy, right? And he uses it because Nick Offerman uses it. And Nick Offerman uses it because he builds canoes.
Because it's for boats, isn't it?
It's for boats. It's not made for anything that we're doing with it. You're supposed to put a really thin layer in a piece of fiberglass and you're fiberglassing with it. That's what it's made for. So using it as a casting resin, it's way too hot. And if you put too much of it in a small area, it's going to overheat. So there are 1,000 different systems for everything you need. And there are specific casting resins that are made to be in small confined spaces and they don't have as much chemical reaction. And so they take a lot longer to cure. I also like using tabletop resins as casting resins because tabletop resins are made to cure over 24 hours. And if you put them in a confined space, they'll probably cure in around 3 or 4 hours. And they're a little softer, but they're really good for inlays and they tend to let most of the bubbles come out. So yeah, so West Systems is actually the worst choice for casting. It's not bad for inlays and, when you're filling in cracks and stuff. But if you want a bubble-free casting, then casting resin or something like an art resin is a much better choice.
Yeah, I tried to do, I think it was actually after one of your videos doing a bracelet. And I thought, I'll put this plastic aerosol can in the middle so I'm not using quite so much resin and I won't have to drill it all out and waste it. So I had that in the middle of a wooden mold, which was hot melt glued together, which I think I'd seen somebody else do. Yeah. Poured in all this resin. And of course, it just heated up all the hot glue, which then melted. So the mold just falls apart. And then there's so much heat around this plastic aerosol can lid that's just like, when you heat those things up, they just kind of crimple like a packet of crisps. Yes. It was like that. And there's resin going everywhere. And I'm going, it's just resin all over the place. But that was West Systems.
So Peter, are you talking about like a Parks, like a super glaze, or like a pour-on resin, or something like that when you're saying, you know, to use that as far as a casting resin, or is it, and knowing that it's soft, because it is softer, but it's the kind of stuff they use when they pour bar tops. Like if you go into a bar that has like baseball cards inlaid into the top of the thing, you know, that's normally a pour-on resin. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying that that's a good place to start. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And I use super glaze, and I prefer Envirotex Light.
Yeah, okay. I use that as well.
I like art resin. Art resin's really expensive, so it's a hard thing to recommend to people, but it really is like the best at that, because it takes such a long time to cure. It can take up to like 3 days to cure flat. And so when you put it into a small casting, it just doesn't overheat. You just will not get that volcano out of it.
But it just takes forever to cure. That's all.
It takes forever to cure in a flat area, but when you put it into a small casting, it takes a few hours.
Oh, awesome.
You're upping the heat, right? The smaller the confinement for the resin, the more the heat matters.
Got it. Because that's the cure. That is the curing process. Got it.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Steve Twidell has a question, and maybe we can leave this with the last one. Steve says Peter's really good at being a storyteller, and he enjoys your views and your thoughts on topics or whatever they may be. Do you enjoy doing those kind of videos as much as the making videos, or is it just kind of an outlet for you to say? And Steve, excuse me, I'm elaborating on his question, but I'm guessing what his intention is. Do you enjoy doing those videos as much as you do your making videos, or is it just kind of a nice release for you to be able to put those out there and let people hear them?
I'm not sure I understand the difference.
Well, basically he's saying that you do it's the difference between doing a vlog and doing a make video, to where you're saying I'm going to cast this, you know, or turn this, and then as opposed to you just putting a video out where you do nothing but share your thoughts with folks. I mean,
I see. Yeah, no, I mean, I like doing them both. I always feel like you just being out there raw, like me just being out there raw, I feel like there's a lot more to criticize than, you know, a project, because as a project, when I put out a project, I could say, oh, well, that failed for this reason or that reason. But, you know, if a video fails where it's just me talking to the camera, then I'm the only reason that it failed, and then I'm a failure. So I feel like I'm putting myself out there a lot more when I just do those talking videos where I'm like, what kind of maker are you? Or, you know, any of the vlogging videos. But I do try to tell a story through my making as well. You know, I try to have it be in a sort of a sequence, like you're along for the ride. So it's just that I've got a prop that, you know, that I can hold up and blame for problems.
I got it. So, I mean, as far as, I guess he's asking, his bottom line question was, do you enjoy making one type of video over another, or do you kind of just, they're different and you enjoy them both for what they are?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. There you go, Steve. There's your answer. The answer is yes.
Thank you, Temple Boy.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, for asking the hardest question he had to answer today.
At least you didn't take away any of my tools.
Yeah. Yeah, Andy, you just need to stop with that. All right. Don't take away Peter's tools. Which, by the way, and I have a quick question. Is your shop still full of tools that you bought from Craigslist?
Yeah. My pride and joy is my table saw, which I paid $50 for. It was barn fresh. I got it actually out of a barn on a grape vineyard, and it took me 10 months to restore it from scratch, and I will never get rid of it. It's a 1950 Delta Unisaw with a 80-pound bullet motor, and I wouldn't trade it for flesh sensing technology for $1 million. It's my baby.
You got some serious sweat investment in that. If it took to restore,
I do. I love it. So I like old tools. And in fact, the worst tool in my shop is a cheap Chinese lathe that I bought full price at Woodcraft. So if I could ever replace that with an old iron Powermatic, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Food for thought. If anyone in the area has got one kicking around they want to get rid of, there we go. But Joe's going to be having a little aneurysm in a little while, I suspect, because we've now gone over. I'm going to blame Chris because he asked the last question. Do you have any?
Okay.
Do you have anyone you want to shout out this week, Peter? Anyone you've been watching, or anyone you like watching, or you just want to talk about?
I was totally unprepared for this segment.
Well, what we can do, you can either say no, that's perfectly acceptable, or we can ask everyone else and then come back to you and give you a few minutes to run around the shop flapping.
I'll take the last run.
Brilliant. Okay then. Well, Joe, do you want to go? Do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely. Making It Out of the Woods on YouTube, Claire. She put a video out this week where she's made the Jurassic World logo into like a wall light carved. She's got resin in it as well. And to me, you look at the imagery of it and it looks spot on to the graphic image that you can Google search and find. So she's made it out of MDF, carved with a router, used Stone Effect spray paint to get that look of the actual logo. Background is filled with blue resin or like pearlescent kind of effect to it. And she's got a great tip filling in, like there's little thin lines on the lettering. And to fill the resin into that, she like used a ketchup bottle, like squeezy lid thing to apply the resin, which is really good. So make sure you check that out. Making It Out of the Woods on YouTube. Great video.
I've actually seen that one, and I will concur.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So, Jamie, any good shout outs this week?
Yes, a very, very good shout out, actually. My shout out is Nate. I'm not going to try and say his surname because I will butcher it. But he's got a YouTube channel called A Young Man's Workshop. And going back to Maker Central again, he did an interview with a few different makers, including Mr. Peter Brown himself. And there was obviously Jimmy Dresser, Jacko, I Jessup, Evan and Caitlin, Heath Knuckles. I mean, the list goes on.
Laura Kampf. I mean, yeah, his last name is his last name is Sandoval. That's Nate Sandoval.
Yeah, that's the one.
There you go.
I'm not going to try and say that.
It's American, Jamie. We don't expect you to.
But yeah, he did like I say, he interviewed everyone, and it's over on his channel, and it's called Making Memories. So yeah, that's it. But also, I've something I haven't done for a little while.
Jamie's page.
I just want to announce that Mr. Cole Jacobson has just passed 200,000 subscribers a couple of days ago. So well done, Mr. Cole.
Nice one, Carl.
Yeah,
So,
congratulations.
Yeah, well done.
Well
Very
done.
well deserved.
And deserved.
So yeah, that's it from me.
Cool. How about Jason? Anything too noteworthy from yourself this week?
I'd like to mention Steve Carmichael just put out a video. They're having a contest with Inventables to create some designs. And if you create a design and put it in easel, you don't have to like make a video or anything. You just need to do that. You can submit your entry, and you can win yourself an X-Carve or some gift certificates from Inventables. So,
is that the headphone holder video that you put out?
Yeah, he made a headphone holder to just give it like an example of what you would do.
Good stuff. I haven't watched that one, but it is in my list to watch presently. I'm not going to say it. Chris, shout out. Do you have one?
My shout out's going to be whatever Peter comes up with, because quite honest with you, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of YouTube watching this week. I have seen a few videos. I saw Joe's while the glue dries. I saw the video that Jason put out, that the bowl that he turned. But other than that, Richard, I really don't. I don't have one this week, so I apologize to the folks that I could give love to, but unfortunately cannot, because I just haven't had a chance to watch. So I apologize.
Well, sometimes life does have to get in the way, unfortunately. But next week we expect to.
Okay.
Well, my shout out very, very quickly is it kind of pains me to say it actually, but I think you'll understand why. It's actually you, Jamie, and the reason for that is, and we,
Are you ill?
No, not at all, not at all. We are constantly back and forth, and giving each other jip and all the rest of it over routers and scroll saws and all the rest of it.
All right. Well, there's another word that you're going to need to translate. What is jip?
Kind of grief or hassle or
banter
or whatever.
All right. I apologize. Move on. Thank you.
There's a constant back and forth between us, and I can remember dating back to when we did the router and the scroll saw challenge, and you and I were messaging each other at ridiculous o'clock in the morning. You were sending me places to go and find scroll saw patterns and things of this and that and all the other different blade types, and you just went all kind of number nerdy on me. But you did exactly the same thing for Kat. Kat's just looking to get into scroll sawing. She came back from Maker Central, and I nearly had a aneurysm myself because she went, I think I might get into scroll sawing. And you've done exactly the same thing with her, and it just goes to kind of back up you, your personality, and what you do, and why you are so well respected within this community. So anyone that's out there in the chat, Jamie's been in the chat as well, go and click on those 3 dots and subscribe to him if you haven't already, and share the love, because you genuinely do deserve it, my friend, even if you are a scroll sawer.
Thank you.
No worries. So Peter, do you have a shout out, something you've been feverishly trying to find the last 2 minutes?
Yes, and actually, I'm glad that I had a moment to think about it. I had a friend of mine just start up his YouTube channel, and he is, his name is Nick Clements. His channel is called I Am Nick D. Clements, and he makes really high-end things, and so I'm excited to see what he's going to do with his channel. His first video was actually an 18-minute video explaining all of the uses for parchment paper in your shop, and some things that I had never expected to use parchment paper for. He is a really easy style to listen to, and I definitely think you should go and check him out and see what you think. Nick's got a really interesting style, and he's a very capable maker, and I'm excited to see his channel grow.
Peter, would you do me a favor and send Jamie a link to his channel so we can include that in this description when it gets re-released on Wednesday?
I absolutely will.
That's awesome, because I would like to check that out myself.
Excellent. Well, Peter, it has honestly, genuinely been a pleasure to talk to you again. I know we spoke at Maker Central and all the rest of it, but to have you on again, fantastic. And I think we'd love to have you on again at some point in the future if you would be so foolish as to accept such an offer.
Thank you very much. Of course I would. It was really nice chatting with all of you, and I appreciate everyone, including Jamie. So, what a huge surprise.
That's saying something. Good for you. See, Jamie, I told you he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
So, if anyone that is kind of still listening either live or on the replay who lives in a mud hut somewhere and doesn't know who you are, where you do what you do, where can they find you to find out more?
I mean, honestly, if you go into Google and type in Gummy Bear Axe, you're going to come my way. So, yeah. That'd be the best way to find me.
Because he's the only person in history to ever make one. So yeah,
that is the most, or you should put that on your business card. It just says, just Google Gummy Bear Axe.
I'm there.
That is awesome. Genuinely, thanks for coming on tonight. And like I said, hopefully you'll return at some point in the future. To those of you guys and girls that are still chatting away in the chat, that is still going crazy.
It's making it hard to watch it.
It is. It's going past very fast. Thanks for sticking with us. If you haven't managed to stick with us this far, then we will, as you always, say what we like about you. Until next week, actually, if you are still here, this is a top one. Join us next week because we have a really exciting person. I am absolutely stoked for next week's guest. I'll leave it at that. You have to wait until the thumbnail comes out. But that's it from me. So I will say cheerio.
Have a great week, everybody.
See you later, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.